These episodes are intended for mature audiences. Viewer and listener discretion advised.
Everything that goes on there is controlled chaos. It's orchestrated chaos. They want you to feel stressed. It was by far the most stressed I've ever been in my life. And I know that because I was physically, my hair was falling out, my skin was breaking out, there were other issues. I was okay, I understand that. Am I eligible? And they said, yes, you're eligible, but you're not competitive. And I was so you're telling me there's a chance? I'm not good with no. If I know that it's coming from someone who's not the person who can tell me no.
Okay, guys, welcome back to the podcast. Today we have, I'm going to call her my long lost sister because growing up, she was always next to me, connected in any type of way. And I always loved having her by my side. So it's so good to be able to reconnect with her. Molly, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Of course. So first question. If you're 18 and you're graduating from high school this year, what advice would you give yourself?
The advice that I wish I had taken more seriously was you're exactly where you need to be right now. And I say that because, growing up, I was always someone who was I just need to get here and I'll be happy, or I just need to get here and I'll feel like I'm successful. And it was I need to ace this AP class, and then I need to get accepted to college, and then I need to do well in college, and then I want to graduate early, and I want to do this and I want to do that. And I missed a lot of that, being present in the moment. And I was so focused on the future that sometimes that journey was lost.
Yeah.
And when I was frustrated that I wasn't where I wanted to be, I had to remind myself, you are exactly where you need to be right now in order to get there. So that's something that I wish I'd taken more seriously.
Yeah, completely agree. I'm in that space right now sometimes, not being where you want to be or you think you should be in life, and just being society's way of life is not mine, and just kind of being today's strength is what I got, and whatever comes tomorrow will come tomorrow.
100%.
So, yeah. So tell me about your life from the time you were born to the time now. How was your life as a military brat?
Always interesting. It was the game of, was it Big Brother or Survivor, that's expect the unexpected?
I think it's both, to be honest.
Probably. It was always interesting. It was always changing. Was born in North Carolina, was only there for about 6 months before we were in Turkey. We were in Turkey for, 2-3 years. Fast forward, we had moved about 14 times, if my math is correct, by the time I was 18. And was so fortunate to live in some amazing places that people dream of going. We lived in Hawaii, we lived in Belgium, we lived in Germany. And it was a really incredible experience for me to be able to see those places growing up and be exposed to that culture so early in my life. That I would definitely say it obviously shaped who I am today and shaped my now career as a Navy public affairs officer. And growing up in Shape, that was the longest place we ever lived. We were in Belgium for 5 years. And just that culture, it's like a micro ecosystem almost. And it's hard to explain unless you were there. But it was a really amazing place for me to grow and kind of figure out what I wanted in life, and maybe not what I wanted in life, but what I wanted for myself in that moment, and how to be independent. And it just kind of shaped some of my early decisions, which led me to graduating high school in Wiesbaden, Germany. Loved that experience, loved the opportunity to stay in Dodea. As a lot of people know, the Dodea system is a really incredible system for a lot of people. With smaller schools and a little bit more one-on-one, the teachers are really incredible. ended up going to Western Washington University, and I got my degree in visual journalism and a minor in educational social justice. Was pretty immediately thrown into an Army wife life, which was really interesting. We were in Korea about a month after I graduated college. Realized that wasn't really my jam. It wasn't really like the purpose that I was looking for in life, which led me to the Navy. And I was fortunate enough to be picked up as a public affairs officer and commissioned in May of 2022.
Okay, nice. So tell me, before the Navy, like in college, what were you looking to do with your degree? Like, where were you looking to go?
Absolutely, yeah. So I wanted to work in journalism or some kind of visual field. The pipe dream was obviously to be a photographer. Obviously, it's not the most stable job, so I was looking for a more stable way to do photography or videography or something in the creative field that I had been training in. And what kind of led to that was actually doing a public affairs internship in Germany. And so at the public affairs office on base, I was fortunate enough to spend, 2 quarters out of the day or 2 periods out of the day in the public affairs office. And I loved it. I was like this, micro journalism where I'm communicating information to families that I know and communicating information that is going to impact someone. I loved the idea of like making the impact versus like being part of a larger media outlet, which is great. But it's harder to see your impact. Yeah. It's harder to know who you're communicating with. Sometimes you're just putting articles out and hoping someone's reading it. Whereas, I wrote a few pieces for like the base newspaper, and my friend's parents came up to me and was like, "Oh, that was a really great piece." And it was really impactful for me to see where my work was going.
Yeah.
So my ultimate goal was like something small like that.
Okay. Yeah. So what in your life made you want to pursue that? Like, what as a kid made you want to be like, I want to go like take photos and impact somebody or write this piece and I want to change a life through my words or through my photos?
Yeah. I really loved photography. Like early on, my parents had one of those, like, it was cheap now, but like at the time it was one of the like point and shoot, Nikon cool pics or whatever. And I was always stealing it. I was always taking pictures. I, just loved it super early. And then middle school, I bought my first DSLR, which was like a pretty major deal. And my brother had a baseball game that weekend, and I think I took like 3,000 photos in a weekend and was like, I love photography. It's my thing now. But then, of course, like growing up and trying to be realistic about it, not a super stable career path as a photographer. Yeah. So I looked for something that would be similar or a job that I could do photography and still kind of cultivate that passion, cultivate that drive, but in a way that I knew a paycheck would be coming in. And that's how I found journalism.
Okay. Do you think like because from what I remember, you're a very social person. So do you think like that very much like helped? Because you would just come up to us and just like have a conversation. It'd be so easy. So like, do you believe that helped you come into like being a public affairs person?
Absolutely. Yeah, I definitely have a big mouth and I don't know if I ever stop talking. So having someone to talk to always helped. And like I said, like growing up the way that we did in Belgium and in Shape, everyone is so different and everyone has had such amazing lives. And they were from these cultures and places that I had never even considered as a place, right? So being able to kind of learn about their lives and and know that the world was so wide. And being able to hear those stories, that like hunger to hear other people's stories was definitely kind of why I never stopped talking, but also I think how I got into journalism, because I wanted to tell other people's stories.
So, yeah, that's good. Like, I can see how learning about the different cultures and how people are so different definitely helps you now, because like it can be at ease when somebody can have the same understanding as you, being in like a part of the military, growing up in it. And so people can understand that, but also like you're very charismatic. And so the way you connect with people is it's different with everybody, but once you start the conversation with you, it's like they come at ease and they're able to like open up to you, from what I remember and everything. So, it's been a while, but I'm pretty sure that's not changed.
You're making my heart so happy. Thank you.
Of course. Like, I mean, your mom and like your dad, amazing people. Your brother's an amazing person. Didn't talk a lot. Love James to death. Didn't talk a lot though.
The only joke that I got the voice. He got like the thinker.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but he was always sweet. Like if anybody needed anything, he was definitely there to like help out. Like your whole family was just like, that was you guys. You guys are just so generous and so loving and kind and caring. So to see that you're, continuing that in your job and how it's going, it's beautiful. I'm really excited for your future and like what you're doing. So yeah, of course. So tell me, like, what are your plans with the Navy? Like, do you plan to stay in, or do you plan to like take it on the outside as a civilian and try something different?
My plan as of right now is to stay in. I really enjoy what I do. And truthfully, the opportunities it affords me, I like the prospect of, not just public affairs in the sense that every day is a little different, right? Like you're planning the next event, or you're planning the next speech or press availability, or you're dealing with some media crisis, right? You can walk into the office and not really know what you're going to deal with that day. And I kind of like that, because it keeps me on my toes. It kind of keeps the mundane daily away. And I would say that the tour I just completed on the aircraft carrier was tough for me, in all honesty, but I still was able to find pockets of joy, and I was still able to enjoy my job and enjoy the people I worked with. And a lot of people say, like, if you can make it through like your carrier tour, or if you can make it through your first sea tour, like, and you can still find joy, then like you are going to be golden the rest of your career, because that typically does tend to be some of the harder tours that we're going to have.
What about it is hard, and like what comes with it that you have to find the joys in order to continue to do it?
It's a tough environment to get used to, because even if you have been in the Navy 16 years, right? Ship life is just so different. And it too, kind of like SHAPE, is such a microcosm, like a micro ecosystem. And for public affairs on a ship, it's pretty tough, because the only ships that public affairs are on are like, they're called big decks. So like aircraft carriers or large deck amphibious ships. And what makes it difficult is you're typically the lower ranking of your peers, but you have the same, if not more, responsibility. So like myself and my boss, I was an ensign, or an O1. My boss was an O4. His counterparts were O5s and an O6. So like leaps and bounds right above kind of his rank. I was an O1. My counterparts at a minimum were O3s and O4s. So like I was his second in command, And for most other departments, the second in command is an 04, but it was an 01 for public affairs. So like I was expected to function at a much higher level. Like when I reported to my ship, I had been commissioned for 72 hours. Like I had not had a week as an officer under my belt before I was expected to be the assistant public affairs officer of not only the Theodore Roosevelt aircraft carrier, but of Carrier Strike Group 9, which included 8 other ships. So what a lot of people kind of don't realize about public affairs is, yes, we are on the ship, we're on the carrier, we are assigned to the carrier, but I'm also responsible for Seaman Timmy on the USS Halsey, who made a mistake in public, and it's now a media incident. I've never been on that ship. I have no idea who Seaman Timmy is, but it's my responsibility. So it's a tough job for brand new public affairs officers because you truly don't know what the Navy is yet, but you're expected to function at this really high level on the aircraft carrier. And it was a lot. I'm not going to lie. There were days that I was like, cool, I'm going to do my 4 years and I'm done with the Navy. Like, I like to think that I was a pretty mentally tough person, but sometimes that schedule or what you're dealing with just breaks you down. So, like our ship did a pretty big maintenance availability or a big maintenance period, and then went into getting recertified and then on deployment. And that recertification process had me working like 18-hour days, 22 plus days in a row, like underway, no internet, no Wi-Fi, no way to like talk to my family, like that support system you were so cut off from. And the busyness sometimes did help because you're just like, nose to the grindstone, like running it. But then you kind of like look around and you're like, I'm tired. And it was tough, but I would say that like the support system I was able to build later got me through my tour. And like my sailors, I got so lucky. I had the most incredible sailors. And so like they were what kept me going. But there were definitely days where I had to like remind myself, like, you're doing this for so-and-so, you're doing this for them, you're doing this for that. So
yeah, it's that's crazy because like, I mean, that's life, right? Like we get so caught up in ourselves, and then like we remember like it's not about us, it's about what we're doing for others, and that can really get you through. So so going from an Army wife to a Navy personnel, was there anything from that Army life as a wife or as like also as a child that really helped you when transitioning into this part of your life and going on the ship? Like, was there parts of your life in the past where you felt alone or you felt like you couldn't talk to anybody about something that helped you in your moment when you transitioned into this new life?
Yeah, I would definitely say there were things that helped me transition. When I was an Army wife in Korea, that was the same time as COVID. And even before COVID hit, I remember feeling very isolated. Like I was fortunate enough to have some friends there, like Daniel Williams.
Okay.
And Candace Williams. Yeah. They were teachers in Korea, so they like invited me to come work out with them, and they invited us to dinner, and that was incredible. Like having that like almost sense of home or like familiarity was really big for me. But before I found a job, I was like lost in the wind. I was trying to find like purpose in my life, but I would like wake up and go work out and then like make a meal and then just kind of like hang out and job search. And it was very isolating because I didn't have a lot of friends, didn't have a lot of family in the area, like had no family in the area.
Yeah.
And my family was, almost a perfect time switch. So if I wanted to call them, it was the middle of the night.
Yeah.
During the day for me. So I remember feeling really isolated and kind of finding strength in like seeking out that community, and finding my tribe, right?
Yeah.
Through the gym, through, different groups, volunteer opportunities, things like that. So feeling isolated on the ship, like, again, making myself go work out, making myself, sit with different people at meal times so that I would get to know more people and I would see more familiar faces. Those were definitely lessons in like growing up a military kid where you just have to force yourself to be extroverted and make that tribe as quickly as you can when you recognize that you need them.
Yeah. So you mentioned working out. And growing up, you played volleyball, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what was like the transition? Because like I remember you playing volleyball like growing up, and then like watching your life over the last couple of years, like I've seen you really gotten into working out. So was it the isolation that kind of was like, you know what, this gives me something to focus on so that I don't have to focus on like what I'm going through at the time?
I think that's definitely probably what was going on in the background. I don't think that like I was consciously aware of it. But it was actually the hunger to compete again. Like I missed, I missed that competition. I missed like being surrounded by people that were just like hungry to get better and get stronger and get the gains. And, it's an intoxicating like feeling being around other people who want something similar to you when it comes to physical fitness.
Yeah.
And it was the Williams who said, hey, there's a like, what was it? Like Camp Humphreys Fit class at this time. It's not CrossFit, but like CrossFit adjacent.
Okay.
You should come check it out. And I was like, okay. And I went to my first workout and I was immediately obsessed because it was so cool to me that there was a workout and my day one, they like modified all the movements and the weight for me. I was still getting the same stimulus as someone who'd been doing this type of workout for 5 years because they were doing a higher weight and a higher rep and different movements. But we were all there for the same reason. And we were all there to like, just get after it for an hour. Yeah. So I was immediately in love with it. And that group became my family for sure.
Yeah. And it seems like it encouraged you to like continue on. Cause like, I know like you do CrossFit and like, did you do Murphy this year?
I didn't. So I was on vacation. I was on the Amalfi Coast, sitting by the beach. I did the lazy thing this year. I'm also nursing a hip injury, which is tangential right now. But no, but I loved it. And like when we moved away from Korea, I was doing those classes in Korea for free. It was just offered on base. It was the greatest thing that the Army has ever done. I swear. The coaches were absolutely incredible. When we moved to Maryland, I looked around at the different gyms and I like CrossFit gyms are so expensive. Like it is. I would say it's like one of the only, if not like the most major downfall of the organization. And I just like couldn't really afford it. I wasn't working at the time. Yeah. So it was hard to justify spending like almost $200 a month on this gym. Looking back, I probably would have done it because I think it was an investment in my mental health. Because it really did become that. But what I ended up doing was I kind of worked out a deal with the owner of the nearest gym to let me do his social media work. So that I was kind of doing the journalism stuff or
You're
marketing.
preparing yourself for what's to come.
Yeah. So I did the social media thing. He gave me a discounted gym rate, which, it was the best of both worlds. And then the gym had coaches leaving. And so he said, hey, if you get certified, like you can get a coach and your membership is free. And I was like, ooh, okay, done. So, I kind of did the math. It was like, I think it was like $1,000 to get certified, which is a lot, but I would have saved over double that across the year in membership fees. So I got certified, immediately loved coaching. It is by far my favorite job I've ever had. Like, my athletes were incredible. It was so fun. Every day was different. But again, like, not the long-term stable career that I was looking for. Okay. But I've since been able to bring that into the Navy. I actually coached TR Fit classes on the ship every Sunday. A group at like 5:30 would come out to the hangar bay and we would just get after it, and I loved it.
Hey guys, I wanted to take a quick break to ask if you are enjoying this episode. Go ahead and follow us on Stories of a Dandelion right here on Spotify or wherever you're getting your podcast, as well as follow us on all of our social media accounts. Let's create this community full of military brats who feel that they're okay with opening up about their mental health, about sharing their journey, what they're going through, and create a place for beautiful healing through stories. So again, please go ahead and follow us on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts, as well as all of the social media accounts. Now let's get back to today's episode. That's good. That's nice. Yeah. I was going to ask, like, with the social media thing, like, did you ever think of that, like going to different gyms and like different companies and being like, yeah, I'll do your social media and I'll do the, whatever digital marketing that needs to be done, a part of that?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I was in Maryland and kind of looking for jobs, I ended up running a couple of like local businesses social media. So it was like, an esthetician, I did her social media, the gym. I did some kind of like freelance work for like a local brewery, and I loved that stuff. And it was so like up my alley in my training, and I got to be creative. But again, just like I was looking for that larger purpose.
Yeah, because I was going to ask, I was like, because like it's a business that you can start on your own, that you can do. Like, was it like, the passion just wasn't behind it for you?
I think I am sometimes like functional to a fault, and like I almost did start a business. I think I even like did a LLC or like a sole proprietorship in Maryland. But I was just sitting there going like, this isn't what I want to do. I want to do the hyper local journalism, and I want to communicate with families, and I want to hear people's stories. And marketing is like almost a completely separate job from journalism. That's why like most colleges, their communication programs, those are two separate things. There's a journalism and a marketing field or path. So it was cool, and I really enjoyed it, and I learned a lot. Again, it just wasn't what I was looking for in life. And that kind of like necessity to start my career was kind of nagging at me. It was like, you're running out of time, which I totally wasn't, but it's what society was telling me. Kind of what you were saying earlier. And it's just how I felt. It was like this just like insatiable thirst to be a part of something bigger.
Well, the thirst for wanting to be for something bigger at the time, did that like affect you mentally as well? Like, were you like, I'm happy with what I'm doing, but like I need to be doing more? And how did you like deal with that at the time?
I would say that I like became very obsessive about certain things. So like the gym, like I found myself working out like 2, sometimes 3 times a day because I like didn't know what else to do with myself. And I kind of felt empty. Like I wasn't super happy personally. I wasn't super happy professionally, I wasn't super happy in my relationships. Like, I just wasn't there. And the only thing that I really like felt joy was my physicality. And so I kind of obsessed over it.
And so how did you, so I guess like that was the transition into the Navy then, because with the physicality and stuff, you were finding a way for you to continue to have that fulfillment that you had from working out and putting it into your career. So give me the steps of like, all right, I'm pulling the trigger. I'm going into the military, even though a lot of us growing up were like, we're not doing it. So what was like, I need to pull the trigger and let's do this.
Yeah, I mean, trust me, I went to college going, I am moving to Washington State and I'm never leaving. Like, I'm putting roots down. I want roots, you know? Obviously, didn't follow that path. Moved around. I think I was still kind of hungry to see the world and travel and have that, like, I did 3 years. I finished my degree in 3 years in Washington, and I was like, okay, time to move. Like, this is my pattern. So was looking for that fulfillment. My grandfather ended up actually passing away, and he was in the Navy. And I was like, you know what? I've always felt obligated to join the military or some kind of civil service. Both my parents were Air Force. So I called the Air Force and I said, hey, you know, I talked to a recruiter and I said, I want to be a public affairs officer. And they kind of like giggled on the other end of the line. And I was like, I'm sorry, what? And they said,
the Air Force is like so minimal. It's like you got these jobs and that's it.
I know. Well, and they said, call me in 6 years. And I was like, 6 years? They said, yeah, we have such a high retention rate. Nobody is retiring, so I can't hire any public affairs officers. I was like, okay. My grandfather being in the Navy was the only other branch that I would consider. I saw the Army side as a dependent, and I was like, you know, mad respect, obviously, just not for me. Yeah. I'm not an MRE and field kind of gal. You know what I mean?
Understand. Completely understand.
So I called the Navy recruiter and I said, hey, I want to be a public affairs officer. They too giggled and they were like, yeah, good luck. And they hung up. And I was like, okay. So I called another recruiter and said, I want to be a public affairs officer. And they were like, yeah, good luck. And I was like, before you hang up, what do you mean by that? And he said, there are so few slots every year. You said you're not prior enlisted and you don't have a master's degree. You're not a competitive candidate. I was like, okay, you know, I understand that. Am I eligible? And they said, yes, you're eligible, but you're not competitive. And I was like, so you're telling me there's a chance?
Yeah. So what I'm thinking, like, people telling you that, like, you don't have enough, like, you're not enough. Like, that had to fuel you to be like, I'm definitely going to show you that I am.
Oh, it was like, maybe to my detriment. Like, I was going to die trying to just join the Navy.
I mean, because you graduated in 3 years. So, like, the fact that they were like, oh, you don't have it. Like, come on. Well,
and I was like frustrated because, you know, I graduated in 3 years. I graduated with honors. I graduated with no debt. Like, I had civilian experience, maybe not comprehensive, but, you know, I had it in a lot of the fields that the military would look for.
Yeah.
And so I was like, hey, recruiter, you're not the board. You're not the public affairs officers that can tell me no. So I'm going to keep pursuing. Long story short, I called 4 recruiters. They all hung up on me. The last officer recruiter in the state of Maryland, I went to her office with coffee and donuts, and I said, please submit my packet. And she was like, it's a waste of my time. And I was like, you're my last hope. And she was like, nope. And I was like, okay, I'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah, so I was about to ask you, how did you deal with being told no so many times by like these people?
Not well. At least that's what they would say. I think it like fueled my fire. Like, I'm not good with no. If I know that it's coming from someone who's not like the person who can tell me no. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I show up at our office the next day and I was like, will you sign it? And she was like, sorry, I don't have time today. I was like, okay. So I came back a third day and I was like, will you sign it? And she said, you're not going to stop, are you? And I was like, no, ma'am. So she finally signed it and she told me, like, you're not competitive. And I was like, I've heard it. I know. Just submit it, please.
Yeah.
And this was August of 2021. Mm-hmm. And November of 2021, I got a call from the admiral of we have one-star admiral who is a public affairs officer. He's the direct advisor to the Secretary of Defense and the Secretary of the Navy. Mm-hmm. He calls all of the candidates personally. And he called me and said, hey, I just want to say congratulations, you got picked up. So,
wow.
It was a really...
First of all, hold on. Don't like let that like just roll over. That's amazing. That is awesome. You didn't give up. You kept going.
I will say I got lucky. So like they usually pick up 3 people. They picked up 8 my year. So they were looking for public affairs officers. I was fortunate enough to have a packet and incredible recommendations from the public affairs officers of the community, mm-hmm. Who I found on LinkedIn. And, they were very generous with their recommendations. And, it was right place, right time. And
I was about to say, that's what you're saying. Right place, right time. Not luck. Yeah, right place, right time. Divine intervention.
You're exactly where you need to be right now. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it was a really amazing experience. And then less than like a month and a half later, I was at officer candidate school in Newport, Rhode Island, getting screamed at by drill instructors.
The fun part. How did you deal with that? Like,
it was a lot. It was so crazy. It was, it was a lot. And like, it was by far like the most stressed I've ever been in my life. And I know that because like I was physically, like my hair was falling out, like my skin was breaking out, like there were other issues. And like I was having a physical response to the stress, which I thought was like kind of interesting to kind of navigate. Mm-hmm. And then, it was truthfully the first time I feel like I failed. So like there were 2, there was a test, a navigation test and an inspection that I failed. And it was like the first time in my life that I like cognitively remember failing. And where I like felt really fortunate that I made it that far in life without feeling like I ever failed. It was really hard to figure out what failure felt like at 25.
Yeah.
So that was really interesting.
Yeah. So I kind of went through the same thing in college. I decided to play basketball and it just wasn't going well for me. It was not going well at all. And like you said, super stressed out. It started showing on my body. Yeah. My eczema was bubbling over. I literally had like just bubbles of like my skin just sitting there. And like I was just in like this super dark place. And that was like the first time I felt like I failed in something that I used to excel in all the time, Yeah. So it's an interesting place to be.
The rock star of Europe. Like,
a little bit, but
you were. I mean, I swear, like I remember in high school, like you and a basketball were just one. Like I don't think you would be dribbling through the halls. Like I don't think I ever saw you without one.
I don't know about that. I wasn't dribbling through the halls, but basketball was definitely my sport in high school, and I thought like I could do it in college, which I could have, but I don't think I wasn't mentally prepared for balancing classes the way like I needed to, and also like the expectation that basketball came before school. Like I'd never experienced that because for my whole life, like school came before basketball, and that was always like it was. So to like fail at a sport that I loved and eventually for some time, I did fall out of love with the sport because of what had happened. So I completely understand, like, being in that dark place, your body physically, like, kind of telling you, because it told me in a way, like, this is done. It's time to, like, quit. And you don't want to, because you feel like you're letting somebody down or you're letting yourself down.
Yeah.
So for, like, my situation, it was the right decision, because after, like, I felt so free to just go and, you know, make friends with, like, people who are outside of that, and definitely made my life better. And for you, how did that stress motivate you to, you know, get through it and get past it?
Yeah, I would definitely, like, I would say that the stress, well, there was some internal, like, I wanted to do well for myself, because that's kind of, I think, the reputation that I built in my mind for myself. You know, there was a huge part of me that was so stressed and so anxious about failing, because I felt like I would be letting down, you know, my class team, my two chiefs. I had a senior chief and a chief that are absolutely incredible human beings. And I felt like if I had failed, I was letting them down, and I was letting the rest of my class down, and I was letting my family back home down, because like, if I had failed, like, my graduation date would have changed, and they already had plane tickets. So that's like a financial investment. So like, there were a lot of things that I felt like were riding on the line, that did motivate me to, like, spend a little extra time studying, or, you know, push a little harder in that run, or what have you. Right. But, I would say that there were a lot of things that I kind of found that my body had limits that I didn't recognize before, which was really interesting. You know, when you're, like, I don't want to say when you're young, because I'm not that far away from it, but like,
no, you're like later in your 20s. Yeah. Like after 25, like you're just breaking down slowly.
But you feel so invincible at that time, right? Like, nothing can touch you. You know, you're coming off the high of, like, I'm going to be a naval officer. And then you realize it's, like, not that easy to get there. And so, you know, it was really interesting to navigate that stress. I would say that, like, weirdly understanding that, like, everything that goes on there is controlled chaos. Like, it's orchestrated chaos. They want you to feel stressed. They want you to feel pressure. They want you to feel exhausted. They want you to, like, push yourself to the limits, right? When I, like, made that mindset switch of, like, this is planned, I was like, oh, okay, let's go. You know what I mean? But that mindset shift was huge. In I wouldn't say I was not stressed after that, but I accepted the stress in a different way.
There was a reason, there was a purpose for your stress, instead of it just being there. Like,
instead of it just being like a cloud, it was like, oh, I got this, and you just kind of, like, moved it out of the way and kept up. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. So, man, it's, first of all, didn't know that about your story. Incredible to hear that, like, you know, you pushed yourself to be in there, and then, like, you know, it's true when they say, like, when things come easy, they don't typically seem to stay. But when you have to work for something and build something, you're willing to, you know, repair it and continue to work for it, because you've worked so hard for it that you found the purpose in what you're doing and the reason for what you're doing. And, like, now you're on the other side, and you're, like, fully in this purpose that you're enjoying and you know, having fun in. So, like, tell me, we're on the last question. Probably there might be some after. I'm not gonna lie. Sometimes I do ask another question after this, but where do you see yourself in, like, 5 years? Even though you are trying to stay more in the present, like, where do you see yourself?
Sure. Yeah. No, I mean, it's important to, like, plan ahead too. So, 5 years from now, I will be, like, partway through my Lieutenant 03, like, rank. ideally, I'm going to be doing graduate education. I would love to be able to do it at Georgetown, but like the Navy offers you to go to Georgetown, Monterey, San Diego State University. So I would love to be kind of finished in about 5 years. I would be finishing up that program.
Okay.
If I'm able to do that right after this tour, schedules have to align for that. But I would like to see myself in the Navy. I would like to see myself like continuing to be a part of something that I feel like is a bigger purpose, serving sailors, serving service members, and hopefully continuing to make an impact that I hope I already have or am starting to make.
Do you see yourself like writing like a blog sometime, like, you know, after your Navy or something, or maybe starting a PR firm, anything like that?
I don't know. I mean, that's a good question. I think that like, if I see myself staying in the Navy as long as I do, it would have me retiring at like 45-ish, which is still pretty young. I mean, that's like I could have a whole career after that.
Yeah.
And I have no idea. You know, it's at that point, you know, I may have other things to consider, like potentially a family or, you know, kids or, you know, I have a dog to consider. That is my child right now. But like in all seriousness, I think that I would love to do something like after the Navy, if I'm fortunate enough to be able to stay in my 20 years, right? I would love to do something beyond that. But I think that, truthfully, I think the Navy is going to point me in that direction because we have the opportunity to do a lot of different things. So you can do crisis communications, you can do like regional communications, which I'm doing now. So I kind of help manage like the media presence and the public affairs presence for Europe, Africa, and CENTCOM. Okay. So there are 11 bases around Europe, Africa, and CENTCOM that we are the higher headquarters for. So, you know, we're communicating with a huge audience right now, and it's really interesting to see the side. And so that's a whole offshoot of, you know, public affairs that I'm learning. So I think that, you know, once I have the opportunity to go through this career, I'll be able to find that kind of specific public affairs path that I want to follow, whether that's marketing, whether that's journalism, whether that's crisis communications, or what have you.
Okay. Well, I'm definitely going to give you a call. Yeah.
Do
when
it.
the time comes. I'll definitely be like, yo, I'm hiring you. Don't really have a crisis. I just want to hire you because you're awesome.
I love that. Oh my gosh, that would be so fun.
Yes. This AFN. Is AFN still around? Like, do you guys work with them?
Yeah, actually. So my office particularly, we use AFN either for like covering our events or putting out the information for events that we help coordinate. Weirdly enough, one of my sailors, MC3 or mass communication specialist, 3rd class, on the ship is moving to Naples, where I'm at now, to be a part of their AFN. So he'll be a broadcaster doing like, if you remember, like, did you ever go to AFN for like school project interviews or like?
No, I went, they interviewed me one time for like the basketball tournament. Yeah. And like, I remember like going on and being like, I want to see myself. And then I never saw it, but your mom came up to me one day and she was like, I saw your interview. I was like, what?
Where?
I know, like where, but it was just so funny, but yeah.
Yeah. So AFN's made up of all of the branches, but some of my MCs on the ship are now like AFN broadcasters around Europe.
Nice. Yeah. That's so cool.
Yeah.
What a
I actually
life.
have his sea bag sitting in my hotel room right now because we left the ship. He's like, I don't have a mailbox. And I was like, mail it to mine. I'll pick it up for you. I'll get it back to you when you get to Naples. And he was like, perfect.
Nice. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, the connections are definitely like life lasting and lifelong. Yeah. So that's so cool. Dude, this was so much fun.
I know. It's crazy to be back like in the European world. Like I don't know if I mentioned, but I was a Dodds like sped aide for a minute.
Oh, really?
In Korea, yeah.
Yeah.
I worked at the middle school over there as like a special education aide, and it was so weird to be on the like
teacher side
and not the student side.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is like so cool, full circle moment, but also so weird, like Twilight Zone.
I know. It's like, wait, I used to be you. Like, what is happening? Yeah.
Well, like, the students were calling me old, and I was like, all right, I'm done with this.
I completely understand it. Like, I was working with the CYS kids, and I was like, oh my goodness, I used to be you. And then, like, they like, how old are you? I'm like 20. Like, at the time, I was like 25. And they're like, 25? That's so old. I was like, hold up now. Hold up. You're only like 12, 14. Like, you're going to be me in 10 years. Like, calm down.
I had one of my middle schoolers in Korea say, were you born in the 1900s? And I was like,
technically, yes.
I was like, let me just turn that knife for you.
I know, it's so weird because all of them now, they're all like 1900s. What is that? Like, that's so old. What is a CD player? What is this? You wrote letters? You didn't connect with your... I'm like, oh my God, yes.
So you know how like all Dodds schools have that random storage closet with stuff from like the 60s and 70s that has not been cleared out? We found floppy disks, and one of my students literally said, oh my gosh, you 3D printed the save icon?
Yeah, no. Kids nowadays don't know.
I said, no, this is the original USB drive. And they were like,
yep. Downloading all the music on like a freaking CD so that people and like different things. Like, oh my goodness. I remember when Raquel did that for me. Like, I had when I went back to Belgium to visit my mom, she bought a car that was a stick. So I had to learn how to drive stick. Mm-hmm. And like it didn't have like a Bluetooth, so like Raquel burned the CD, and I was like, "Yo, what are we in the 90s right now?" I love that though. It was so funny, but yeah, like it's so weird to how technology has grown and changed as we were kids. It's really interesting to see. Yeah,
well, and like it's funny because long story short. On the ship, you go into emissions control. So you like anything that emits a Bluetooth signal has to be completely off. So cell phones, like your smartwatches, right? Like everything has to be off. And so you'll see people walking around with like Walkmans to listen to music, or like those super old iPods.
Yeah.
Or like there's one office with a record player in it.
Oh, wow.
Just so you could listen to music during those like shutdown times.
Yeah.
And, like, what Twilight Zone am I in right now?
Feel like Doctor Who going through time.
Oh my God.
Wow.
Yeah. It was
That's
funny,
awesome. This has been awesome, Molly.
Awesome. I love this.
Yes. And probably, if you want to do this again, you're more than welcome. If you want to come on when your mom comes on, yes, I'm calling you out, Miss Workman, right now. When she comes on, that would be awesome, doing a mother-daughter thing, but this has been amazing, and this has been awesome.
Only if your mom also comes on. Like,
I think my mom also comes on. You know what? I've been trying to have my mom come on for a while, and I think if I get Miss Workman to come on, I can get my mom to come on at the same time.
It's the mother-daughter episode.
It has to be. So, you know what? I think you just got a way for my mom to come on. So, let's see if we can get that together.
I love it.
Oh man! All right, it's been great. I love you so much. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Hey guys, thank you for tuning in for another episode on the Stories of the Dandelion podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please go and share it with a friend, a colleague, or even a family member. And make sure to follow us on all of our social media platforms so you can stay up to date on when the episodes are coming out and what is involved in each episode. Thank you again for tuning in, and I will see you all next Military Brat Monday.